Greetings, viewer. This week you join me aboard the Mercedes' brand new flagship, the new S-Class, codenamed W223. Although the long version has the V designation, so this becomes the V223. And the longer Maybach version is called the Z223. My tester today is an S500 4Matic. It's powered by a 3-liter 6-cylinder engine that puts out 435 horsepower and 520 newton meters of torque. And that's enough to send this almost 2-ton barge to 100 kilometers per hour in 4.9 seconds and on to its limited top speed of 250 kilometers per hour. Now, whenever a new S-Class arrives on the scene, it's a big moment not only for Mercedes but for the entire industry. The S-Class is known for previewing many technologies that later make their way into more affordable cars. And there's a lot to talk about there. I'm definitely not going to be able to cover all the things this car is capable of doing in this video. Now, as you would expect, this new S-Class does all the S-Class things really well. So for instance, the suspension is nice and floaty. It's a standard air suspension, but optionally you can add a hydraulic component to it. That further enhances the ride, and it also allows the car to have less roll through the corners or pitch and dive when you brake and accelerate. It still feels like a pretty big boat, but these active systems do help it. Now, I'm going to say it right off the bat. This new S-Class is brilliant. There are literally hundreds of things that I could think about, positive things to say about it. But there are also a few negatives that I'm not quite sure about, and I don't understand why Mercedes chose to go down that route. I mean, even though the overall impression is undeniably a positive one, it is marred by a few weaker points in my opinion. So stay tuned to find out what they are. There's so much to talk about that I don't even know where to begin. So let's start with the basics. This is the 7th generation S-Class. It is a little bit longer, wider, and taller than the car it replaces. You won't really be able to tell just by looking at it, but if you compare it alongside the previous version, the W222, you might spot the few extra centimeters that it has over that car. The exterior design of this new S-Class has caused some controversy. Many reviewers say that it's, it looks like a bigger CLA, which it kind of does until you see it in person and you start to notice all of the gorgeous detailing on the exterior and the sculptural bodywork. It's a very pretty car. It's definitely better looking and better proportioned than the CLA. Up front you have the same basic design, although again it's tailored for the S-Class and it looks far more exclusive than the aforementioned CLA. The car gets standard multi-beam LED headlights, but my tester has the optional headlights with the digital light projectors that have a 1,000,000 pixel resolution, and theoretically they can project anything onto the driving surface in front of the car. So you could write messages, you could project navigation directions, and I'm sure Mercedes and other manufacturers will find ways of using this constructively, hopefully to improve road safety, because it often boils down to that. This particular car also has the AMG pack, which changes the front and rear bumpers. And I have to admit that this car looks really, really aggressive with the AMG bumpers. This example also rides on 21-inch wheels, which are the largest that you can fit on the current S-Class. But honestly, although we're not talking about suspension comfort yet, I would advise against opting for these wheels. They look tremendous, they are gorgeous, they are a very nice visual choice, but they make the ride a bit more jittery than you might expect. It's fine over most surfaces, but over sharp bumps, you do feel quite a bit of movement and sound coming from the suspension, actually. It's often disconcerting, but that's how pneumatic/hydraulic suspension works. It sometimes does make a noise, but at least you can raise and lower the ride height, which I needed because I took a rather unusual shortcut the other day to avoid a traffic jam. Moving to the side of the vehicle, it's a very smooth and sculptural looking thing. It doesn't have any very sharp details, although there is one crease that connects the front light clusters with the rear ones. And there's also a striking chrome strip along the side skirts. Probably the most striking thing about the side profile of the vehicle are the optional pop-out door handles, which are one of the details that I could certainly do without in this car. And I'm happy that Mercedes offers the traditional door opening solution. Like, yeah, they definitely look cool and ever so slightly improve this car's aero credentials. I especially like the rear of the new S-Class. And again, as with the front, yes, the basic outline of the rear light clusters is similar to other Mercedes models like the new C-Class, the facelifted E-Class, the CLA, and I think those, because those are the latest sedans. It's the detail that sets it apart. So aside from the little LED illuminated crystal looking things that look amazing, there's also a chrome strip that runs all the way around the rear. And where the inner corner of the rear light clusters meet this strip, there's a little cutout. And if you look closer, it's like a complex, multi-curved surface. It looks really, really good. I'm sure it's a pain to stamp that out, because it looks like a one-piece stamping. It's really, really nice. The exhausts that come with this AMG bumper, they are semi-fake, I would say. There's a big ornament that you notice right away, but inside there are actually 2 real exhausts per side. And speaking of the exhaust, I have to admit that I really like the exhaust note of this 6-cylinder engine. It sounds really good, even from inside the vehicle, but especially from outside. Some reviewers have complained that a bit too much engine noise makes its way into the cabin, but I like it. Because this vehicle is a mild hybrid, so it gets an integrated starter generator, its response to any prod of the pedal is really, really good, helped of course by the instant torque of the electric motor, which has 22 horsepower but a claimed 250 newton meters of torque. So even though this is still a traditional turbocharged gas engine, which has turbos that you still need to spool up, it's definitely made better by the fact that it's a mild hybrid and its responsiveness is improved. Out on the open road is where the S-Class is at its best. The suspension does an amazing job of ironing out bumps. Remember, this is the optional suspension that has both a pneumatic and a hydraulic component to it. And it does a really, really good job. But this car is also good in the city. So over speed bumps and potholes and uneven roads at lower speeds, it still does really, really well. It's actually also really good at navigating tight and twisty, either narrow mountain roads or country roads, as well as tight cities where you have a lot of 90-degree turns that you have to make. That is thanks to this car's impressive rear wheel steering setup, which offers the most lock in the industry. up to 10 degrees. So the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction to the front wheels at speeds of 60-ish kilometers, and then they turn parallel to the front wheels to improve high-speed stability. That's nothing particularly special, but what is special is that amazing angle, which makes this rather big car feel so much smaller. I would also like to add that, unlike other rear wheel steering setups, whose intervention you do notice, in this car, Mercedes has somehow managed to make it feel more natural, I would say. You don't really feel like the rear end is crabbing to the side, you know? This car also has the improved version of Mercedes Magic Body Control, which is now called e-active body control. So when you go around a right-hand corner, for instance, that would make the car lean to the left, the suspension automatically beefs up the suspension on the left side to make the car corner almost flat. This is achieved through the use of a 48-volt electrical system. Also, just like the Audi A8, although not quite as spectacular, is the fact that if this car senses a side impact, it will raise up the side where the impact is imminent, so that whatever car is about to hit you will hit you in the sill area, which is much stronger than the door, which usually tends to buckle if you really hit it hard. So, as you would expect, Mercedes has knocked it out of the park with this car, in terms of the way it drives, at least. It's brilliant. So while the exterior is not very obvious, although it is a pretty car, but it's not in your face, it's subtle and tasteful, I think. But the interior is completely at odds with that. It's here where Mercedes has made the biggest changes and the most controversial ones. So for this new S-Class, the automaker has ditched the dual screen setup that featured two 12.3-inch screens. You still get the one 12.3-inch screen that does the digital gauge cluster stuff, and it's configurable. It has several screens and several styles, and you can even have the navigation all across the screen, which is pretty good. There's also a 3D system that follows your eyes. Well, there's two cameras here in the upper part of the screen itself that follow the movement of your eyes and create a kind of parallaxis effect, like you might see on your iPhone, for instance. When you change the background, you have the option to make it move. This is exactly what this is like, but it's enhanced. The effect is more pronounced because it's actively following your eyes and adjusting what you see. Your passengers might see it like you would, I don't know, a 3D movie without the 3D glasses. Does anyone remember those? What's interesting about this 3D gauge cluster movement thing is that Mercedes has handily added a shortcut in the upper part, in the upper left corner of the central infotainment screen, which we'll get to in a second. In other words, the automaker is aware that some people might want to disable this system, so the shortcut is always there. I myself have toggled between keeping it on or off, and right now it's on, but it's sometimes a strange thing to look at. I mean, it startled me at one point. I was like, hey, do I need glasses? Am I seeing double? Oh no, it's the 3D thing. You probably will get used to it in time, and it's a cool effect, but it's really just a gimmick. It doesn't really have any actual functional purpose other than looking cool. The center screen, which is a beautiful, gorgeous looking OLED panel, is now portrait oriented, and it has haptic feedback. The lower part is dedicated to the climate controls, which you can expand into a climate menu at the press of a button. It's very responsive, it looks really, really pretty, and it works with the new dash design, which is far, far techier and more futuristic looking than the previous car. This car makes that car look like an old car, and it's not an old car. It was in production until last year. It features an adapted and improved version of MBUX, which works really well. There's nothing to complain about. This car, being an AMG pack car, gets the gorgeous AMG steering wheel, which I think you should totally opt for, because I personally am not a fan of the standard steering wheel, even if you can get it with the nice wood trim around the edge, which looks cool and it certainly is fitting for this type of vehicle. But this AMG steering wheel with the nice grips here, with the recesses, it's a gorgeous thing to hold on to. It's obviously heated. I'm waiting for the first cool steering wheel in a car. If there is one and I don't know about it, please write to me in the comments, but I don't think there is one. But now heated steering wheels you can get in a Mazda hatchback. So seeing it on an S-Class isn't really surprising. But the steering wheel is nice to grip onto. It has paddle shifters, so you can shift the 9-speed automatic transmission on your own. It's a great looking thing. I really, really especially love the steering wheel. What I'm not so sure of are the stalks behind the steering wheel. I do like their design, but I'm not a fan of the material, the plastic. It feels kind of cheap and flimsy. I don't know why Mercedes opted for this material here. Why not just have them out of a single piece of metal? And it's also worth noting that in ditching any physical controls on the center console and opting for this really big screen, this car has lost an air of craftsmanship somehow. I mean, touching all of the controls that were so nicely weighted and pleasant to the touch was an integral part of the experience. Just pushing the buttons was a pleasure in and of itself. And this screen, while functional and very good at what it does, cannot replicate that sensation, even with the quite expensive and pleasant feeling haptic feedback that also enhances safety. What also enhances safety is the optional Augmented Reality head-up display. The car comes as standard with a non-Augmented Reality head-up display, but you pay extra for this one that overlays for instance, navigation information over the road. So for instance, if you set a destination on the navigation and you have a left turn coming up, you will see arrows placed where the intersection is in front of you. And as you get closer and closer, you will see those arrows increase in size and guide you to your destination. And they will start flashing as you approach your turn. That's really cool. Really, really cool. The next step is to have it span the entire screen. How cool is that? But even this system is really, really cool, and it's useful. It also displays the usual active cruise control, speed limit, and all of that. This is again nothing new. One area of the interior that I really don't like, Mercedes has kept the style of buttons that you've gotten used to in its cars over the years, that have basically recreate the seat out of buttons, and it's very intuitive, and you can, whichever part of the seat you touch, you move it around, and this moves the seat. It doesn't get more intuitive than that. However, for this new model, they still have the buttons, although they are no longer buttons, but they are press sensitive, because they are not touch sensitive, because if you just touch it, nothing happens. For instance, I'm playing with the headrest now. I'm touching the button, nothing. But if I pull on it, it starts to move. So I'm touching the back of the headrest button or control, and nothing is happening. I'm increasing my pressure, and then it starts moving. Maybe you'll get used to this in time. But frankly, I'm not a fan at all I mean, it's a bad design choice. What's wrong with making this click so that you know you have selected it? I don't know. This is a very weird solution. I also think that automakers should come up with something better than glossy plastic. Yes, piano black looks nice on pianos, but this is not a piano. This is a luxury limousine. And you're going to touch this area very often, and it's going to look really, really messy, as it does now, even though we have wiped it. It certainly looks nice when it's all wiped, but if you look closer, this car that has just 3,500 kilometers on its odometer already has tons of micro scratches on this. Mercedes also opted to do a touch/press panel for some of the controls. So right below the center infotainment screen, you have a touch-sensitive panel that you can also press on, because it knows where your finger is. So the click it has 2 clicks, one for each side, and depending on where you are holding your finger on this bar thing, it enables or disables the control that you have selected. There is a physical button which is mandated by law to be physical, and that's the hazard light button. Mercedes also opted to not have its vents round anymore in the S-Class. These are rounded rectangles, and you move them 2 at a time. And instead of having a small wheel which you can turn or some physical control to stop the airflow, it has a button with light markers. So when all 3 bars are lit, this means that the maximum possible amount of air is coming out of this vent. The ones on the sides, here, the side vents, they are vertical, but they are basically the same shape, although they're more elongated. And they also work in tandem, so if you move one, they both move, and they have the same LED lit button to control the airflow. I must also give a special shout out to the ambient lighting setup. Mercedes says this is the most spectacular and advanced lighting setup, mood lighting setup, of any car currently in production, and I won't deny that. It certainly looks like it is. And the best part is that it's active, so you can select a few themes that feature several colors, not just the one color. And then if you pay close attention to it, the color actually moves and it varies along the bar here. It's breathtaking, it's beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite details about this car. And it also gives you a visual indication when you adjust the temperature. For instance, if I raise the temperature, I'm not sure you can see it, but if I raise the temperature, you get a red animation, whereas if I choose to reduce the temperature, you get a blue animation. That's very nice. I didn't even have time to mention the captain of industry seat, as I call it, which is the rear right seat that has the most adjustability, and you can even push the front passenger seat all the way forward and recline it, and then a little support for your feet and then a little support for your legs pop out, making you supremely comfortable on longer journeys. There's also a tablet in the back, which you can control many car functions with if you have the Mercedes Me app installed on your phone, which also gives you a multitude of other options. For instance, you can make an account and create a profile on the app, save your settings in this car, and then that's uploaded to the cloud. And when you climb aboard a different Mercedes and log back into the app and connect to the car, it will remember all your settings, including for the seat and the driving position, as well as climate control, pretty much everything that is You can set and save, it will remember it and apply it to a new car that also has similar features that you can enable. And you can log into your Mercedes account with either voice control, a PIN, or you have a fingerprint sensor here. You really can't not like the S-Class. It is a masterclass in how to make a luxury sedan. And I'm happy that Mercedes is still making it in this SUV crazed world. Maybe in a few generations time they will ditch the sedan and just make SUVs, probably electric SUVs. The thing is with the S-Class that it's, even though it's undeniably almost flawless in many of the things that it does, I'm not sure it could be called quite as a standard setting or class leading as it used to be. I mean, before, a few decades ago, 1 or 2 decades ago, the S-Class was easily the king of its luxury segment. But now, other rivals really challenge its crown. And I would have to drive the big 3 back to back, or the big 4, or maybe the big 5, now that the Genesis G90 is among us, to really be able to gauge it. In isolation, it's undeniably impressive. I've had a ball driving this car around. It's super special. It makes you feel like $1 million. You probably need to have $1 million to be able to pay for this car, which in Romania starts at 120,000 euros. But this car has 60,000 in options. And I'm sure I've listed some of them. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the Burmester 4D sound system, which is an 8,000 euro option that has 31 speakers, including ones embedded in the seats that work both with the music and with some of the Vitality programs that this car has. Hey Mercedes.
How may I help you?
I'm tired.
You should take a break at the next suitable place. Until then, I will turn on the Vitality program.
So now that the Vitality program has been turned on, the car starts to play like a little track, and you also feel the low sounds, the bass. You feel it in your seat with the integrated speakers. And this is complemented by the massage function, or this complements the massage function. So many features. I could literally spend hours talking about this car. But my time with the S-Class is sadly up. I'm going to drop it off now, shed a few tears, and then head back home. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, make sure to actually like it by clicking on the like button. And if you enjoy this type of content, maybe consider subscribing to my little channel and helping it grow, because subscribing is the bread and butter of YouTube, even though it's not as important as it once was.